My mind is pretty blown in this whole thing with calcium and fat loss. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but it's been popping up in some of the academic threads on Twitter lately. Really fascinating stuff. I'll open right up with a study that was published in the FASEB journal that explains sort of the mechanistic piece, and then I'll circle back to a little bit more of like the appetite suppression aspects of calcium. I encourage you to stick with me through this whole video though, because I'm going to talk about how to utilize calcium a little bit better, but also calcium is one of those things where you don't want to just willy-nilly take a bunch of it. There are some links where cardiovascular issues with too much calcium and coronary artery calcium and CAC scores. So we want to look at that stuff. This is really cool science coming out. Please do drop a comment too. It helps the algorithm out. And afterwards, check out Thrive Market. They are a sponsor on this channel. But if you're looking for better for you food options delivered to your doorstep without having to deal with a bunch of junk ingredients and garbage, that's going to be the place. And they're a big supporter on this channel, which means I'm very grateful for them. And they also help my subscribers out a bunch. And that's a 30% off discount link for your entire first grocery order through Thrive Market. So super good quality foods delivered to your doorstep in just a couple of days. No hidden nasty things in there, and super easy to use interface to do your grocery shopping wherever in the country you might be. So that link is in the top line of the description. So this study published in FASEB journal, really cool stuff. Now I'm opening with the more mechanistic study, and then we'll kind of open up more to the human model stuff, but specifically surrounding fat loss. I'll explain how it works. So with the study, I'll just kind of skirt around the details of it real quick. They basically found that when you ate more calcium, it decreased calcium in the cells. And when you decreased your calcium intake, it increased calcium in a fat cell, which sounds like complete opposite of what you would want. The interesting thing is what we're learning now is that dietary calcium is going to influence the cell levels of calcium inversely. So high dietary calcium actually lowers calcium in the cell. And when lower calcium is existing, less calcium in the cell, it actually allows for more lipolysis to occur. It allows for more fat loss. In this particular case, in mice, we have human data too. In this case, for this video, it makes more sense to explain it like ground up. So they found that these mice, they would give a low calcium diet to, and they would give them a high fat and high sugar diet to induce weight gain. And what they found is that, yes, they gained a lot of weight, they gained a lot of fat mass, but they also doubled their intracellular calcium in the fat cell. So when they deprived them of calcium, calcium stored in the fat cell. But then what we've seen in subsequent research based upon this is that when high calcium was added in, I quote from the researchers, it markedly reduced calcium in the adipocyte or in the cell. So we're learning that it's sort of an opposite kind of situation. But then we learned that calcium ends up being this really significant driver for fat loss, because what they found is that the higher the calcium in the diet, there was a 35 to 63% decrease in what is called fatty acid synthase in the cell. Just like it sounds, fatty acid synthase, it synthesizes fatty acids. So it builds fat. Now, we're not talking a 5%, a 10% reduction. We're talking 35 to 63% reduction in the ability to build new fat cells. Now, in addition to that, there was also a 2 to 3x increase in lipolysis. So it doubled the rate of fat being liberated out of a fat cell, out of a triglyceride. And there was a 2x, now this part's in mice, 2x increase in uncoupling protein 2, which is also in humans, but it's more pronounced in mice. That is brown fat activation, where you dissipate extra calories as heat. And what we've learned from this is that calcium, and I'm going to talk about a journal nutrition study with humans, calcium actually doesn't just reduce your appetite. It doesn't just burn fat, but it actually increases the entire rate of flux. So if you eat more, you're going to actually burn more as long as calcium's higher. So this study that was published in Journal Nutrition took a look at, I think it was like 110 people or something. It was a 22-week weight loss study first. They took people that went on a 22-week weight loss, they lost a bunch of weight, and then they had them go on their regular diet to live their life. So they followed them at 6 and 18 months. And what they found is that those that ended up taking in significantly more calcium, both dietary or from a supplement, they had significantly less weight regain than those that didn't get adequate amounts or a lot of calcium. It was a very line item, right? The more calcium, the more they kept off. The less calcium, the more they regained. And what we found with this research is that there was a reduced effect of greater intake of food. So when calcium was high enough, there was a reduced effect of the increased food. So they could get their calories back up and it had a reduced effect. Okay, then there's appetite research, what I've done other videos on. Basically, the body is going to eat until its calcium needs are met. because calcium is so critical for contraction, for heartbeat, for so many things. The body says, if I don't get enough of my calcium in, I am just not going to function, or I'm going to make it so that you eat until you get enough calcium. What are we usually eating? Hyperpalatable processed foods that are probably very devoid of calcium. And if we are getting calcium, we're often getting it in fortified foods or even in supplement form in our multivitamin or something, which is better than nothing because the research shows it helps. But dietary calcium is where it's at. There is this thing called the food matrix where calcium and vitamin D and sunlight and vitamin A and these other things all work together. Now, what I've noticed from the other research, and I've talked about this in other videos, so if it's a little bit of a repeat, just forgive me. I just want to make sure everything's explained. It's very important that calcium is taken in the morning more than anything, because the appetite suppressant effects actually really hit better in the morning, and they can have an immediate effect for that day. In fact, there was a study in Proceedings of Nutrition Society that found that when you had 500 milligrams of calcium with breakfast, on average, people ate 116 calories less with lunch. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's real stuff. So we want to really focus on getting the calcium in the morning. It also makes sense. Like the body says, hey, I got what I needed. You're cool today. Don't worry about it. Now, there's some people out there that say you could do a larger bolus of calcium. Their body's not going to excrete it too much. I don't know if I buy into that. And I haven't seen it tested, because I do know that we too excrete a lot of our minerals, including calcium. It's water soluble. You kind of have to just keep taking it in. And it would make sense. The body's going to demand that. But from an evolutionary perspective, it would make sense that we could go periods of time without food, and then we have one large bolus. But when we do have a large bolus, what do you think we get? We get meat, we get connective tissue, we get all kinds of things that are rich in calcium. We would probably eat eggs and realistically even eat the egg shells. I want you to think big primal feelings here. Like, what would you eat if you were in this savanna and you were going a period of time without food? You'd probably eat as much as you can. And you'd probably even stew the bones and you get some calcium there. You'd make broth, you'd get these things. So I encourage you to think of it like that, but also allocate the dairy and things like that to the morning when you can, and see what it does to your appetite. As always, I'll see you tomorrow.